Adam stood near the airport window with his small suitcase beside him and his daughter Mia holding his hand and watching planes move slowly across the ground. He was a single father who had learned how to stay calm even when his heart felt heavy. Mia was quiet that day and her eyes looked tired but curious as she watched people hurry past them. Adam checked the time again and then looked at the boarding passes folded neatly in his pocket. He had read them many times because the words first class still felt unreal to him. He had never imagined sitting there, but today was different and today mattered. Mia had been sick for months and many doctors had not given clear answers. A hospital in another city had finally agreed to see her, and Adam knew the flight would be long and tiring. He wanted Mia to be comfortable and safe for every minute of the journey. That was why he used almost all his savings to buy those seats. He did not think about luxury or status, and he only thought about his child. Mia leaned against him and asked in a soft voice if they were really going on a big plane today. Adam smiled and told her yes and said they would be in the air soon. He brushed her hair gently and reminded her that the doctors were waiting to help her feel better. Mia nodded and tried to smile back even though she felt nervous. Around them the airport was filled with sounds of rolling bags and loud announcements and people calling each other. Adam felt out of place among the well-dressed travelers, but he stayed focused on Mia. He had learned long ago that caring for her meant ignoring many looks and silent judgments. He remembered the long nights when Mia cried from pain and he stayed awake holding her hand. He remembered working extra hours and skipping meals so he could save money for this trip. All of that brought them here to this moment. When boarding was announced, Adam picked up their bag and guided Mia toward the line. She held a small toy in her other hand and looked around with wide eyes. As they moved forward, Adam felt a mix of fear and hope growing inside him. He feared the unknown and the long road ahead, but he hoped this journey would change everything for his daughter. When it was their turn, he showed the boarding passes and the staff scanned them without much expression. Adam thanked them politely and walked onto the plane with Mia. The inside of the plane felt calm and bright and the air was cool. Mia stopped walking for a moment and stared at the wide seats and soft lights. Adam gently guided her forward and helped her sit by the window. She touched the seat and whispered that it felt like a couch. Adam smiled again and placed their bag in the storage space above. Before Adam could sit down, a flight attendant appeared beside them with a firm posture and a tight smile. She looked at Adam and then at Mia and then at the seats. She asked to see the tickets again, and Adam handed them over without hesitation. The attendant studied the tickets and then looked back at Adam with doubt in her eyes. She said there seemed to be a problem and that these seats might not be theirs. Adam felt a sudden tightness in his chest, but kept his voice calm as he explained that he paid for those seats. The attendant glanced at Mia and then looked away and said first class was reserved for certain passengers. Adam asked what she meant and reminded her that the tickets were valid. The attendant shook her head and said he would need to move to economy class. Her voice was polite but firm, and it left no room for discussion. People nearby began to look over with interest and curiosity. Adam felt his face grow warm, but he stayed still and held Mia closer. Mia looked up at him with confusion and fear in her eyes. She asked if they were in trouble, and Adam quickly told her no and said everything was fine. He turned back to the attendant and calmly said his daughter was not feeling well and needed space. The attendant crossed her arms and repeated her request more sharply. She said he was slowing down boarding and needed to cooperate. Adam realized arguing would only make things worse and he did not want to scare Mia. He took a slow breath and nodded even though his heart ached. He reached for their bag and helped Mia stand up. As they stepped into the aisle, Adam could feel the weight of many eyes on his back. Some faces showed curiosity and some showed judgment and others showed nothing at all. He focused on taking one step at a time and keeping Mia close. She wrapped her arms around his waist and buried her face in his jacket. Adam whispered that everything would be okay, even though he was not sure if it would. The attendant pointed toward the back of the plane and waited for them to move. Adam walked forward slowly with Mia beside him and tried to ignore the whispers and looks. Each step felt heavier than the last. They reached the aisle near the economy section and stopped as the attendant spoke quietly with another crew member. Adam stood there holding the bag and feeling small and powerless. He thought about the long months of struggle and wondered if this trip would start with another disappointment. Mia asked again if she had done something wrong, and Adam shook his head quickly and told her she was perfect. He felt anger rising inside him, but he kept it hidden because Mia needed calm, not conflict. He looked down at her and promised they would be okay no matter where they sat. Unnoticed by most passengers, an elderly man in the front row had been watching the entire scene. He had sharp eyes and a calm expression, and he did not miss a single detail. He noticed the way Adam stayed quiet and respectful, and the way Mia clung to him in fear. He saw the attendant's tone and posture, and the lack of kindness in her words. As Adam stood waiting near the back, the elderly man slowly stood up from his seat. He adjusted his jacket and looked toward the crew with quiet authority. The moment felt heavy and uncertain as the plane remained silent except for soft movements and whispers. No one knew yet that everything was about to change. Adam stood near the back of the plane holding Mia close while the quiet around them felt heavy and uncomfortable. The lights above were soft, but the mood felt tense as people whispered and watched from their seats. Mia kept her face pressed against Adam's jacket, and her small hands gripped him tightly as if she might disappear if she let go. Adam looked down at her and felt a deep ache in his chest because he knew she was tired and afraid. He wished he could take away every worry she felt, but all he could do was stay calm and steady. The flight attendant spoke with another crew member in low voices and pointed toward Adam and Mia as if they were a problem to be solved. Adam waited without speaking because he had learned that patience was sometimes the only shield he had. He reminded himself that making a scene would only hurt Mia more. He focused on her breathing and gently rubbed her back to help her relax. Around them the plane felt paused in an awkward moment that no one wanted to be part of. Mia lifted her head slightly and looked up at Adam with worried eyes and asked again if they were going to miss their trip. Adam smiled softly and told her they were still going and that nothing bad would happen. He said they were brave and strong, and that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Mia nodded slowly, even though she did not fully understand. Adam felt proud of how quiet and trusting she was even in a confusing moment. He knew she depended on him completely, and that thought gave him strength. He took a deep breath and stood tall even though he felt small inside. Suddenly a calm voice spoke from the front of the plane and asked what was going on. The sound cut through the whispers like a clear signal. The elderly man from the first row had stood up and turned toward the crew. He walked slowly down the aisle with steady steps and eyes that missed nothing. The flight attendant looked surprised and tried to smile politely as she asked him to return to his seat. The man did not raise his voice, and he did not rush. He simply asked again why a father and child were being moved after boarding with valid tickets. The plane grew quiet and many passengers leaned slightly forward to listen. The flight attendant explained quickly that there had been a misunderstanding and that first-class seating had certain expectations. The elderly man listened carefully and then asked to see the tickets himself. Adam hesitated for a moment and then handed them over with shaking hands. The man studied the passes closely and nodded once. He said the seats were clearly paid for and assigned. He asked the attendant why that was not enough. The attendant struggled to answer and looked around for support that did not come. Adam watched silently and felt a mix of hope and fear growing inside him. He did not want special treatment and he did not want trouble. He only wanted fairness and peace. The elderly man turned slightly so everyone could hear him and said that no passenger should be judged by appearance or quiet behavior. He said travel should be safe and respectful for everyone. His voice was firm but calm, and it carried weight. The head attendant arrived quickly and asked what the issue was. The elderly man handed her the tickets and explained what had happened. The head attendant's face changed as she read the passes and listened. She looked at Adam and Mia and then at the flight attendant who had made the decision. She took a slow breath and apologized for the confusion. She said Adam and Mia would be escorted back to their seats immediately. Adam felt his legs weaken slightly as relief washed over him. Mia looked up with wide eyes and asked if they were going back to the big seats. Adam nodded and told her yes, and she smiled for the first time since boarding. The head attendant guided them forward with care and respect. As they walked through the aisle, Adam noticed how the looks from other passengers had changed. Some looked embarrassed and some looked thoughtful, and a few smiled kindly at Mia. Adam kept his eyes forward and focused on Mia's small steps beside him. When they reached the first-class section, the elderly man stepped aside and gestured toward the seats. He smiled gently at Mia and told her she chose a good window. Mia smiled back shyly and climbed into her seat again. Adam placed the bag overhead and sat down beside her, feeling both grateful and overwhelmed. The flight attendant who had removed them stood nearby, looking pale and shaken. She took a step forward and spoke quietly as she apologized for her actions. She admitted she judged too quickly and caused harm. Her voice trembled and she looked at Adam with regret. Adam listened without interrupting because he believed listening was powerful. He did not feel anger anymore, and he did not want revenge. He only wanted Mia to feel safe and calm. The cabin felt different now, as if a lesson had been shared without shouting. The elderly man returned to his seat, but kept an eye on them with a thoughtful expression. The plane prepared for takeoff, and the hum of engines slowly returned. Adam held Mia's hand and felt her relax as she leaned back into the seat. He looked out the window and thought about how close he came to giving up and how sometimes help appears when least expected. He knew the journey ahead would still be difficult, but this moment gave him hope that kindness could still rise when needed. The plane slowly began to move as the engines started, and a deep, steady sound filled the cabin. Adam sat beside Mia and felt her small hand resting in his as she looked out the window with quiet wonder. Her fear had faded and her breathing became calm as she watched the ground drift away. Adam felt a wave of relief wash over him because she finally looked peaceful. He leaned back and allowed himself to breathe fully for the first time since boarding. Around them, the cabin settled into a gentle rhythm as the plane climbed higher into the sky. The elderly man in the front row turned slightly and looked back at Adam with a kind expression. He nodded once as if to say everything was all right now. Adam returned the nod quietly and felt a sense of respect and gratitude. He did not know who the man truly was, but he knew that he had spoken when it mattered. Mia noticed the exchange and asked if the man was a helper. Adam smiled and told her yes, and said helpers sometimes appear in unexpected ways. Mia nodded as if that made perfect sense to her. A few moments later, the head attendant returned and knelt slightly so she could speak at Mia's level. She apologized again in a gentle voice and offered Mia a small pillow and a drink. Mia thanked her politely and accepted the pillow with a shy smile. Adam watched this exchange closely and felt glad that Mia was being treated with care. The head attendant then spoke softly to Adam and assured him that the situation would be reviewed carefully. She said the airline valued respect and fairness and promised that lessons would be learned. Adam thanked her calmly and said he appreciated the apology. The flight attendant who had removed them earlier stood a few steps away with her hands clasped tightly. She looked nervous and uncertain as she gathered the courage to approach. When she finally stepped closer, her voice shook as she spoke. She said she had judged Adam without knowing his story and that she was deeply sorry for causing pain. She admitted that she had let her own thoughts guide her actions instead of kindness. Adam listened quietly and kept his voice steady as he responded. He said everyone makes mistakes and that what mattered was learning from them. He said he hoped she would remember this moment in the future. The attendant's eyes filled with tears and she thanked him sincerely. She stepped back slowly and wiped her face before returning to her duties. The cabin felt calmer after that, as if a heavy weight had been lifted. Passengers returned to their own thoughts and conversations. Some glanced toward Adam and Mia with softer expressions than before. Adam felt no pride and no need for attention. He only felt relief that the moment had passed without leaving scars on Mia's heart. As the plane leveled out, Adam helped Mia adjust her blanket and reminded her to rest. She leaned against the seat and asked if they were flying above the clouds. Adam told her yes and pointed toward the white shapes outside the window. Mia smiled and said it looked like a dream. Adam felt his eyes grow warm as he watched her drift into sleep. He knew she had been strong through more than any child should face. He gently brushed her hair back and whispered that everything would be okay. While Mia slept, Adam's thoughts wandered to the months that led to this flight. He remembered the long hospital visits and the confusing words from doctors. He remembered the nights when he sat beside her bed listening to her breathe. He remembered doubting himself and wondering if he was doing enough. Sitting there now, he felt a quiet sense of hope. This journey represented more than a medical visit. It represented his refusal to give up and his promise to always stand for his child. The elderly man stood again later and walked back toward Adam's row. He spoke quietly so as not to wake Mia. He introduced himself simply and said he admired how Adam handled the situation with grace. He said strength was not always loud and that calm dignity could change more than anger. Adam thanked him and said he only wanted to protect his daughter. The man nodded and said that was the greatest responsibility anyone could have. He then returned to his seat, leaving Adam with words that stayed heavy in his heart. Time passed gently as the plane moved steadily through the sky. Adam watched the soft lights and listened to the hum of the engines. He felt tired but peaceful. The fear and embarrassment from earlier felt distant, now replaced by quiet reflection. He realized that moments like this could shape a child's view of the world. He was glad Mia would remember safety instead of fear and kindness instead of shame. He promised himself that no matter how hard life became, he would continue to lead with patience and care. As the cabin lights dimmed, Adam rested his head back and closed his eyes briefly. He knew challenges still waited ahead when they landed. He knew answers were not guaranteed and the road might still be long. But in this moment, high above the ground, he felt a sense of balance. He felt seen and respected not because of a seat, but because of his humanity. He squeezed Mia's hand gently and stayed still as the plane carried them forward toward hope. The plane began its slow descent as the lights inside the cabin grew slightly brighter and a calm announcement filled the air. Adam opened his eyes and looked out the window as the clouds moved away and the ground slowly came back into view. Mia stirred beside him and rubbed her eyes before smiling when she realized they were almost there. Adam felt a quiet sense of strength inside him because they had made it through the flight together. He knew the hardest part was not the travel but everything that waited ahead. Still, this moment felt important and meaningful to him. Mia asked if the doctors would be kind, and Adam told her they would do their best to help. He reminded her that she was brave and that bravery did not mean being unafraid but moving forward anyway. Mia nodded and squeezed his hand tightly. Adam felt proud of her and grateful for the trust she placed in him. He knew every step he took mattered to her future. As the plane touched down smoothly, Adam felt a soft wave of relief wash over him. Passengers stood and gathered their bags as the cabin filled with movement and quiet chatter. Adam waited patiently until it was their turn to leave. The head attendant returned one last time and wished them well with a warm smile. She said she hoped Mia would feel better soon. Adam thanked her sincerely and said he appreciated the care they had shown. The elderly man passed by as well and gave Adam a small nod and a gentle smile. No words were needed between them. Adam understood that some moments created silent bonds. As Adam and Mia walked through the airport terminal, Adam felt different than when they first arrived. His shoulders felt lighter and his steps steadier. Mia looked around with curiosity and excitement as if the world felt a little safer now. Adam knew the journey ahead would not be easy. There would be tests and waiting and moments of fear. But he also knew he would face them with the same calm strength that carried them through the flight. Outside the airport, the air felt fresh and cool. Adam adjusted Mia's jacket and called for transport. As they waited, he reflected on everything that had happened. He realized that dignity and patience had protected them more than anger ever could. He realized that standing quietly for what was right could still create change. He hoped Mia would grow up remembering how people should be treated. He hoped she would learn to look beyond appearances and choose kindness. The transport arrived and Adam helped Mia inside before sitting beside her. As they drove away, Mia leaned against him and said the plane ride felt like a story. Adam smiled and said some stories teach lessons without meaning to. Mia yawned and rested her head on his shoulder. Adam looked out the window as buildings passed by and thought about how life could change in small moments. He thought about how close he came to giving up his voice and how important it was that he stayed calm. When they reached their destination, Adam carried Mia inside and helped her settle into bed. She fell asleep quickly, holding her toy tightly. Adam sat beside her for a long time, listening to her breathe. He felt tired but peaceful. He knew tomorrow would bring challenges, but tonight he allowed himself to rest. He felt proud of himself, not for the seat they sat in, but for the example he set. In the quiet room, Adam thought about the flight attendant who had judged him. He did not feel anger toward her. Instead, he felt hope that she would remember the lesson. He believed that people could change when they were given the chance. He believed that compassion could grow, even in unexpected places. That belief gave him comfort. As night settled in, Adam looked at his sleeping daughter and made a silent promise. He promised to always protect her dignity and her heart. He promised to teach her that kindness mattered more than status. He promised to remind her that her worth was never decided by how others saw her. He felt tears in his eyes, but they were not from sadness. They were from relief and quiet pride. The journey that began with doubt ended with clarity. Adam understood that strength did not always mean fighting. Sometimes it meant standing still and holding on. As he turned off the light and prepared to rest, he felt ready for whatever came next. The world had tested him, and he had passed not by force but by grace. And for Mia, this journey became more than a flight. It became the beginning of hope and quiet courage.